Hello and welcome to the ScatterVolt channel, and today let's get down and dirty with what are the best graphics cards to buy in the month of June. If you just got out of school and you want to find what are the best graphics cards to get throughout this summer, don't worry, I'll be covering those deals in these kinds of videos, as well as giving a general guideline right now as to which graphics cards to definitely get and which ones to avoid, as well as some pricing updates. And funny enough, Nvidia is actually coming in with some discounts on some of their graphics cards I really like, which is really interesting to see. Do they know something we don't with RTX 5000? I don't know. But some of their best graphics cards, as I said, that I really like are on nice discounts. So we'll be covering those as well as everything else from AMD and Intel in this video. So if you want to check out anything that I talk about in this video, they'll all be linked in the description down below. And we don't have a sponsor for this video, but shout out to PCBuilds.gg. It's a very cool website that shows you the best possible PCs you can build at certain price ranges and for certain uses. And that'll also be found in the description with everything else from this video. All right, let's start things off at below $200. Oh, yeah, you don't want that. We don't want 3050s here. They're slow and they suck. Here's what you do want though, and I just used this graphics card in my latest $500 PC build. The Intel ARC A580 is hands down the best graphics card under $200, and it's also the most capable graphics card under $200. In terms of raw performance, it is now, for the most part, going to beat the RX 6600, which right now retails for about $200. Whereas the A580 can be had for $160 right now, even for this really cool Sparkle OC Edition card. Now, why is it capable? Despite it being an Intel ARC graphics card and the stigma of ARC graphics cards having bad drivers and blah, blah, blah. Well, on that, there's only two games that really are not quite optimized for Intel ARC graphics cards that are of note, and those would have to be Starfield. That just happens to be an AMD sponsored game that just doesn't run well right now at Intel ARC. And GTA 5, for some reason, again, could be an optimization thing, but just about anything else, especially on DirectX 12, is going to run very well on the ARC A580 for the price. Or if you wanted to run like anything obscure from the 2000s, like the original Fallout, yeah, Intel ARC, that's kind of predating the driver team for these kind of graphics cards. But if you're a modern day PC gamer, this is gonna provide so much FPS for the buck. As we found out from my $500 PC build guide, CS2 ran very well on that graphics card. So did Baldur's Gate 3, and so did Cyberpunk 2077 at 1440p with ray tracing on a $160 graphics card. This is capable, and the last thing, as I always mention with these ARC graphics cards, is that they come with the AV1 codec, which is excellent for game recording and gamer streaming, and it is an Intel graphics card at the end of the day, so you can utilize the quick sync codec with these graphics cards to speed up your video editing performance in programs like DaVinci Resolve. It's a very excellent all-around graphics card for the price under 200 bucks. Don't get anything else other than this unless you find a very good used graphics card deal. Okay, now for below $300, we actually have quite a few options here, but only one of them is good. I'd like to give an honorable mention though to the Intel ARC A770. This card just no longer makes sense right now in this price category. It only made sense during Black Friday and Cyber Monday when you could pick up one of these for $250. That was absolutely crazy. But right now you can pick this up for at lowest $280. Although it's a neat graphics card in terms of raw performance, all the other ones we're gonna cover are very much better for the price, especially in this budget conscious price range. So the A770, despite it being, I think, probably the best budget video editing graphics card there is in this entire video, I'm gonna put it on the sidelines. So let me get one obvious graphics card that I know you guys are gonna talk about in this video out of the way, and that is if you live in the United States, don't buy an RTX 3060. The RTX 3060 right now on Amazon US is retailing for about $290, and it really doesn't make sense to get this graphics card when the RTX 4060 can be had for almost $15 more. And despite me saying that, this is still one of the best selling graphics cards on Amazon and Newegg. And it's a crime because this shouldn't be. It's slow at its price point. I think the 12GB VRAM buffer found on this graphics card is really swaying people just to get this graphics card, but the core itself is still slow. It's gonna get beat by the graphics card I'll eventually recommend in this price range, and it even gets beat by the Intel ARC A750. And if you're getting beat by an Intel ARC card for less, that's a really big problem. So it really doesn't make sense to get a 3060 right now in 2024, although I understand in certain countries across the world, the 3060 actually makes sense in terms of pricing, especially compared to AMD. But at least here in the United States, especially looking at Newegg and Amazon, the 3060 should not be selling as well as it is. It's slow and underpowered for its price, and it's a last gen Nvidia card and can't even use frame generation. But what is a graphics card that can utilize frame generation? Well, we've got two of them on this table, one of them being the RX 7600. This graphics card, I'm actually not too hot about recommending right now because it isn't really seeing a good price discount. It's staying close to MSRP, which is $270. And for a graphics card with 8GB of VRAM, that's okay. But for only $30 more, you can eventually snag a 6750 XT or 6700 XT. And both of those cards are very much faster than this. So this really needs a price discount. I'm not seeing it right now because otherwise you might as well pick up an RX 6650 XT. This one right here is the one I'll ultimately recommend for under $300 because in terms of raw performance, it is very close to the 7600, and the only thing this lacks is the AV1 codec. So unless you intentionally want to stream or do any sort of gaming, that's where the 7600 might have a little bit of a leg up since it has the AV1 codec, but you still have the traditional AMD Relive at your disposal, which is good enough for basic streaming and basic game recording. So if you care more about frame rate and getting the most bang for your buck, the 6650 XT is really the only thing left out there. And to be honest, get it while you can because it's probably gonna be ending production soon because this is soon going to be a 2-generation old graphics card once RX 8000 releases this fall. But I do want to give an honorable mention to another Intel ARC graphics card in this price range, the A750. This could be had for $200 on the dot, which is all right. Would I take this over a 6650 XT though? Because although the 6650 XT can be had for about $230 and was about $220 last month, this is about $200. If I had an extra $20 to $30 to spend, I would look at the 6650 XT. It's just slightly more well-rounded. But if I could find an A750 for below $200, like $190, then I would really consider picking up one of these. Like I said, it's also, in a way, a very well-rounded graphics card thanks to the AV1 codec inclusion and Intel QuickSync for video editing, and its raw gaming performance is also pretty respectable given its price. So it just needs to go on a little discount and then I'll really push this graphics card again, but otherwise, get this 6650 XT while it's here. So under $400, I think it'd be smart to go ahead and start off with graphics cards that I wouldn't recommend in this price range. Funny enough, starting with the 4060, because the graphics card I'd ultimately recommend in this price category, where there's two of them actually, one of them handily beats this graphics card in terms of raw performance and features, in my opinion, a lot better hardware for the money. The only thing really going for the 4060 is not even ray tracing, because it is a $300 graphics card after all. If you're gonna do ray tracing, even with frame generation, you're looking at 1080p, really. I'd really only look at doing like ray tracing full on if you at least have a 4070, because there you can probably take advantage of ray tracing at a higher resolution, like 1440p or even 4K with an even more powerful graphics card, and there that's gonna give you the graphically visually pleasing experience that you're looking for with a ray tracing capable graphics card. But for a 4060, it just needs more juice. So really, you're only gonna wanna consider a 4060 if you play Fortnite, or if you really want frame generation. If you already know what kind of PC games you're gonna be playing, and a lot of them are gonna support DLSS 3.0, then the 4060 is the most cost-effective way to get that out of the box at $300. But if there's any PC game that you load up that doesn't have frame generation, then the graphics cards I'm gonna recommend later in this segment are going to blow this away, because for $300, This has basic entry-level 8GB VRAM, which may not last you long 3 years from now. If you want to run Grand Theft Auto 6, you better pray it has frame generation, because that's what you're going to have to rely on for a 4060. But here's a graphics card I just would avoid outright, and that is the 8GB 4060 Ti. So unlike the 4060, the hardware in this graphics card is just really underpowered, whereas the 4060 can sometimes get away with it. This has the same basic entry-level 8GB VRAM, but at about $375. That is really embarrassing for a graphics card that is targeted towards 1440p gaming. And this definitely, absolutely gets beaten out by the other recommended graphics card I suggest in this price range. It even has double the VRAM with double the memory bus. So it's definitely going to last. If there's any game that you boot up that is going to be at a higher resolution and doesn't have any sort of frame generation or fake frames, that's gonna handle it way better than this. So kind of like the 4060, you better pray that GTA 6 comes with frame generation, because the 8GB VRAM buffer on this is not gonna be enough at 1440p. You could maybe get away at 1080p, but why are you already gonna settle for 1080p on a $380 graphics card right now? It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, well, here's two graphics cards that make a lot of sense. What I would get over the 4060 is a Radeon RX 6750 XT. There's also the 6700 XT. But right now at Amazon and Newegg, at least here in the United States, these are separated by $10. And if you can get a 6750 XT for $10 more than a 6700 XT, then that's pretty obvious. You want to go with this. This is a much better bang for your buck graphics card than the 4060, even if it is one generation old, and that's because the hardware you're getting in this graphics card is pretty outstanding for the price. 12 gigabytes of VRAM with a 192-bit memory bus is definitely going to keep you pretty well at 1440p right now and into the future. And once AMD catches up to Nvidia when it comes to their frame generation technology, even on this generation old graphics card, you will be able to take advantage of FSR 3 on a lot of different games, as we already see right now in Starfield, which is one of the best examples of that. And for $300, it's just a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece in its price class. But what is also very, very good, and it encapsulates the same sort of spirit of the 6750 XT, is the 6800. This graphics card, Again, I keep telling in these videos, I swear it's gonna go out of stock, but then it comes back at an even lower price point than I last checked up on it. And this can be had right now for $370, I believe, on Amazon and Newegg. That's really good, especially for a graphics card that has 16 gigabytes of VRAM with a 256-bit memory bus. This probably has the best chance of running Grand Theft Auto 6 come 2027 with whatever upscaler comes with it, just because this has so much VRAM at its disposal. You shouldn't run out of VRAM anytime soon on this graphics card, and fortunately it is fast enough to take advantage of it. Also, one thing cool that I've noticed with the 6800 is that it's actually pretty power efficient. This doesn't consume that much more power while gaming versus the 6750 XT that I just showed you, and this is a good step up in terms of performance. So that means two things. You can undervolt this to save even more power, but you could also definitely overclock this, because the 6800 XT, which is this card basically on steroids, consumes way more power, but that is definitely a step up over the 6800. But you can't really get your hands on a 6800 XT brand new anymore, at least here in the United States. But for $370, look no further than this. In a way, this is also going to be a better buy than the next graphics card I'm gonna cover in the next price segment. That being the 7700 XT. This graphics card has gotten a nice price reduction at about $400. That is a good thing, but as per one of my latest videos, not latest, this is pretty old, but I compared this graphics card versus the 6800 on launch, and the 6800 still won. And if you're specifically looking for an AMD graphics card, you probably want that 6800 just because it comes with a little bit more VRAM. But still, the 7700 XT is not too bad. It comes with the AV1 codec, but it's 12 gigabytes of VRAM, and I really think that 6800 is just a slightly more appealing graphics card, even for $30 less. Although I think right now on Newegg, there's a really hot sale where you can get this for $380 with a discount code, which is good. But if you're looking for an AMD graphics card, 6800. But even then, I think there's a graphics card in this price range that is even hotter than the 7700 XT, and we'll cover that in a bit. But a graphics card that isn't hot is the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte. Although this graphics card has been steadily dropping in price over the months because it just really underperforms for its price, I still wouldn't really consider it. Yes, it has 16 gigabytes of VRAM, but the problem with that is it comes with the 128-bit memory bus. So the same size as that entry-level 4060 Ti with 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Kinda embarrassing, but that's what Nvidia had to make the most of with this graphics card. It's only really worth it if you do any sort of 3D modeling, because there the extra VRAM will definitely come in handy. And I think in terms of pricing, the 4070, which would be my pick, hasn't quite been going down in price and is eventually gonna go out of stock at some point. So I would really only consider the 4060 Ti if you are for sure going to do a lot of 3D modeling or even AI. But if you're a gamer, no. I'm sorry, no, don't, no. I'm gonna throw this. That 4060 Ti box has received some abuse over the last few months. But one thing that's been very prized is gonna have to be now the 7800 XT. I'm moving it now down below $500 because I've been seeing an ASRock Challenger card consistently at $480. So if you're looking for a graphics card below $500, you have to pick up a discounted 7800 XT. There is no other way. If there's a 7800 XT above $500, you don't want to get that. You want to get the 7900 GRE, which we'll be covering in the next segment in this video. So you only want to consider this graphics card if you can snag it below $500, which I believe you can now. And there's not much more I gotta say with this graphics card. It's got the best blend between hardware, performance, features, and being a next generation Radeon card, or at least a current generation. And this is one of the few RX 7000 cards that didn't look like an embarrassment at launch versus the previous RX 6000 cards that were compared against it. The 7800 XT did hold its own versus the previous 6800 XT. But like I said, better ray tracing performance than the 6800 XT, comes with the same amount of VRAM at 16 gigabytes, and its price at launch, $500, was very good. That was a very good call from AMD. So yes, please snag this graphics card if you can below $500. It will give you all of the 1440p gaming performance you'd ever need, even in Fortnite. So in this price segment 1 month ago, my choices for the best graphics card would have been pretty clear cut. But like I said at the start of this video, a very non-Nvidia thing just happened. And one of the best graphics cards I like to recommend in this price category has gotten a price decrease. Right now, I think you can pick up a PNY RTX 4070 Super for $580 below MSRP. And in a way, my ultimate choice between this and the RX 7900 GRE just got a lot more tougher, because the 7900 GRE did get a very much needed driver update for its memory performance, allowing it to run at a higher clock speed, which really helped this performance. But I guess as a response to that, you can now get a 4070 Super for $580, about within $40 to $30 of a 7900 GRE. And I'll say it, at about $600, I think you want a graphics card that is a very good all-around card. And the only thing the 4070 Super doesn't really have going for it is its 12 gigabyte VRAM buffer. But what it does have going for it is the best ray tracing performance at its price point. And combine that with frame generation, this is the graphics card you want to get to experience graphically pleasing experiences with ray tracing on at higher resolutions like 1440p and even 4K, if you can manage that on this graphics card at a price point that isn't going to destroy your bank account. This is a nice investment for an Nvidia card. It's got the best hardware for the money, 4070 Super at $580 is a pretty hard bargain to beat. But for some reason, if you happen to be in this price bracket and you don't care about ray tracing, look no farther than the 7900 GRE. This is going to offer very excellent hardware for this price. It comes with a little bit more VRAM over the 4070 Super. And if you just want raw frame rate, yeah, this is the one you want to get. And like I said previously, if there's a 7800 XT for $500 or above, don't get it. Get this, because it's definitely the faster card to get, even if it costs about $50 more versus a $500 7800 XT. And because I know you guys are gonna talk about it, why even look at this graphics card where you can get a 4070 Super for about 40 bucks more, or you can even get a 7900 GRE for the same price of a 4070. Yeah, don't consider the 4070 anymore in 2024. The 4070 Super and the RX 7900 GRE are that good for the price. Now, oddly enough, that trend of discounting Nvidia graphics cards, I actually kind of recommend, especially at higher prices, continues with the 4070 Ti Super, because you can now pick this up for $780 through a Zotac card right now on Newegg, and I think on Amazon that also is looking at about $790, so below MSRP for an Nvidia card. Actually kind of good. If I had a choice between this graphics card and a 7900 XT, which I would say at the beginning of this year, I think the 7900 XT was a slightly better buy versus the 4070 Ti Super, because at the time, the 4070 Ti Super at its MSRP was all right, but it didn't necessarily blow the socks off the 7900 XT. As a matter of fact, this lost in terms of raw performance. But now coming in with these price discounts, the 4070 Ti Super, I think, is making up for that slight performance loss in this card being a better all-arounder. Why I say that? Because ray tracing on this graphics card is sublime. It's excellent. It's got 16 gigabytes of VRAM, which I think is a very healthy amount. Yes, 20 on this graphics card would be nice to have, but I think the difference between, say, 12 gigabytes of VRAM and 16 gigabytes of VRAM going forward into 2025 is not going to be as drastic as the difference between 16 and 20. So as long as the 4070 Ti Super keeps coming down in price, I think in this price bracket, I'm gonna have to give the slight edge to it. Because again, I think it's a slightly better all-around graphics card, especially with how good ray tracing is on this kind of a graphics card, which I would think anyone spending $800 or below that on a graphics card is probably gonna want something that can do very well in ray tracing. But don't get me wrong though, the 7900 XT is no slouch either, and still it is at a very awesome price point at $700 or even going below that. If that happens, or not $600, $700, if you can find one of these for below $700, I definitely pick it up. The hardware for the money is just too good to pass up, but it's staying at $700 right now. So with the 4070 Ti Super creeping down in price, this graphics card, although very good for just pure raw frame rates, I think might be slightly overshadowed by the fact that its ray tracing performance is not nearly as good as a 4070 Ti Super. And that Nvidia tax you would pay to get that, better ray tracing performance is going down in price with that 4070 Ti Super versus the 7900 XT. But still, that doesn't make this a bad graphics card. It's still very fast for the money. And some more good news I can give is that those discounts are also kind of going to the 4080 Super right now. I think you can pick up one of these for $960 on Newegg. That is really surprising. That's $40 below MSRP, which otherwise would have been really difficult to get for at that price in the first place when this card launched, because it was getting scalped for a few months and it was at $1,200. But now for about $1,000, this is not too bad. Even some of the higher end RTX 4080 Super cards that were fairly marked up are now getting closer to $1,000, which makes this pretty appealing. But I like to think if you were at all interested in this graphics card, all those rumors and leaks on the 5080 and the 5090 have to be kind of swaying you just to wait, because something could get announced at Computex as of filming this video. And if there is confirmation on a 5080 and 5090 coming soon, the 4080 Super, I think you should pass up just for that reason alone. And I like to think in this price bracket, if you aren't looking at a 4080 Super, you're probably looking at the 7100 XTX for, I think now $900, which is really good. And the raw performance in this is definitely substantial over a 4080 Super, whereas maybe between the 4070 Ti Super and 7100 XT, that was a little bit closer, or a fair bit closer, but between this and the 4080 Super, the 7100 XTX does have a noticeable bump. So if you don't care about ray tracing at all, although the 7100 XTX can do ray tracing actually pretty well just because it has so much raw performance in the first place, then yeah, this is the one to get. If you want those ridiculously high frame rates at 1440p or 4K in any competitive first-person shooter or PC game for that matter, this graphics card is going to deliver it. And with 24 gigabytes of VRAM at this price, you are also pretty much going to be set for life. This will absolutely run GTA 6 when you ask of it, when that game finally comes out for PC. So I think this really is the only graphics card I can recommend in this price category, because if you're looking for a 4080 Super, wait. There's some news coming up on the 5080 and 5090 that is worth noting and probably worth waiting for. Although I wouldn't be surprised if those graphics cards experience scalping for the first 6 months, or for that matter, they could be so expensive that then the 4080 Super looks like a really good deal. We'll just have to wait and see. So there you have it. That is it for this GPUs of the month video. And if you like the information that I gave you, as well as my personality to keep these videos interesting, giving it a like would be greatly appreciated. And if you enjoy this kind of content, you've made it to this point in the video, probably should subscribe. I mean, why not? So with all that said, thank you so much for watching, and this is the ScatterVolt channel, signing out.